live, but again, thanks, welcome. Glad you guys are here. As far as I know, the only agenda that we have is to follow up on the conversation that we started on Saturday, which was the infill housing resolution put forward by the Sierra Club, and really trying to figure out how to assist them in fine tuning that so that it accomplishes their goal of being good advocates for and good stewards for the environment and for housing and housing policy in a way that doesn't violate fundamental principles of CEQA and smart land use planning and all that good stuff. Am I properly representing you guys' perspective, or maybe Steve or Bill, you guys want to add into that?
Yes, I think the problem with the Sierra Club's situation is that we have a very broad view of the environment, and that means we're following about 600 bills a year. And CEQA is one of the things that we want to protect. And frequently, people who build housing would like to have it free of CEQA. And so that ends up with us opposing a number of bills that attack CEQA. And a number of them are housing bills. There are some good housing bills, particularly the ones that improve funding.
Absolutely.
And we'd like the Sierra Club to be on record as supporting housing bills and not simply weighing in on the opposition side. So that's the bottom line for us.
Okay, and let me push that a little further, if you don't mind, Steve, and we can kind of quickly go around so everybody knows who's who. But is it because in reading through the email chain that you guys sent, and thanks for following up with that background, it almost sounds like the resolution that you put forward, Steve, you're interested in being able to use that as a guide or a rule of thumb to try to establish some baseline principles to use when folks are looking at all these different bills that are coming down the pipe. Is that a fair statement, or are you actually trying to implement policy with the resolution itself?
We're not trying to affect policy. The policy is established by national or in separate resolutions by the Sierra Club California. But that, of course, is being examined right now with the infill development policies that were adopted 2 years ago, and now the implementation process is being reviewed. And sometime over the next 3 weeks to 6 weeks, we're very likely to see what the implementation looks like. So there is a tendency, to the extent that this resolution tries to hit some of the high points in that policy, for people to drift into discussing what the guidance should say or shouldn't say, rather than focusing on the main gist of the resolution, which is let's include housing as a priority in the kinds of bills that we ought to be addressing.
Okay.
So ultimately, the staff in Sacramento is going to be weighing bills against Sierra Club policy on housing and infill development. And I don't know to what extent they will be looking at the guidance, because the guidance is pretty much aimed at chapters and groups as they decide whether they're going to support or oppose individual projects.
Got it. So this is guidance that the Sierra Club staff in Sacramento is going to use in analyzing and responding to specific housing bills, basically.
our resolution will not be. The national policy on infill will be what they will be looking at.
Okay. I see Suzanne is waving her hand. Suzanne, you want to unmute yourself?
Yes. Steve, I appreciate your very thorough delineating things for us. I just need a bit of clarity. If I heard you correctly, the infill policy is already in place. It was adopted 2 years ago. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And how well does that policy affect, what does it do for CEQA and other environmental considerations that have to be taken into consideration?
Yes.
Does it recommend a stronger support of CEQA or lessening CEQA because the housing's more important? Can you give us more detail on that, please, sir?
Well, it's a national policy, and CEQA is a state legislative act with rules that interpret it. So national doesn't particularly deal with CEQA. CEQA is something that we try to protect as state policy. So national is interested in making sure that the Sierra Club supports infill development that will help the environment by shortening commutes, improving the jobs housing balance, improving the types of housing that support whatever employment there is in a group's territory or a chapter's territory.
Sorry, Steve, finish your thought.
I think that that finishes my thought. I hope I've answered Suzanne's issues.
One more quick one, and then I'm going to do a quick round robin and get everybody to introduce themselves and their affiliation, and then we'll start because I see some people have hands raised. Somebody sent me the Sierra Club's 2018 white paper on housing policy. How does that tie into all this, Steve? Is that something, because you're talking about the national policy, does that dovetail with that, or?
What they probably sent you was the national policy, yes. Okay,
I'll put it up on screen at the appropriate time and maybe we can go through.
Steve, just a comment, that might have been what Eric Parfait authored about California housing, but we'll see when it puts on the screen.
Yeah, we'll circle back on that. Let me just real fast, I'm just gonna call everybody by first name. If you can, make sure you're unmuted and say your name and affiliation, and we'll keep it going. Patricia Mcpherson.
Hi, yeah, I'm Patricia Mcpherson. I'm a Sierra Club member for about 30 years and also president of Grassroots Coalition. I deal a lot with oil fields, gas issues, and human health and safety issues, as well as wildlife.
Excellent. Joan, you may have to unmute yourself, Joan. There we go.
Better? Okay.
Yep.
Sorry. I'm sorry, I couldn't get my computer to work. It had that deadly swirl, so I apologize.
That's okay. We can see you and hear you for the most part.
Okay. All right. I'm with the South Bay Palos Verdes group. My big project was the Palos Verdes landfill. I know anything and everything you want to know about that site. Not good. And I worked with Bill Brand, who's now currently the mayor of Redondo Beach, because we both had the same goals to keep open space, and we worked hand in hand on that theme, if you will. And then I'll speak to these issues when it's my turn.
Got it. We're coming back. I see your hand. Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, Sarah Roos. I realized I think I joined the Sierra Club when I was 11 in New Hampshire. I'm now 60. So
wow.
It actually, I'm embarrassed to say, it never occurred to me that there are meetings and people actually doing things. So that I'm a passive member, also a member of LACDP, the Democratic Party in Los Angeles County. And, I've been on neighborhood councils here and certainly involved with these issues for many years now. So thank you for bringing me in.
Excellent. Thanks. Kathy.
Kathy Knight, right? Okay. Kathy Knight, I'm with the Sierra Club Airport Marina Group. And I've been a Sierra Club member. I'm a lifetime member at this point. And I've been a member for about 30 years.
Great.
I'm very
Thanks.
interested in this situation because I love the neighborhood I live in. It's just so wonderful to live here. Thank you.
Gotcha. Jeff?
Hi, I'm Jeff Calvin. I'm United Neighbors. I'm a practicing architect. I'm on the board of Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. And I chair both Sherman Oaks Planning and Land Use Committee, Sherman Oaks Vision Committee. I also chair the United Neighbors Vision Committee.
Thank you, sir. Zelda?
Hi. Hi, Bill Smith. How are you?
I haven't seen you for a long time, Zelda. It's great.
It's true. We had coffee long, long ago, way back
Remind
when.
me your last name. Bornstein, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I live in Berkeley, and I've also been a member of the Sierra Club for 30 years. Former chair of the Berkeley Planning Commission. That was a while ago. I'm a journalist who writes about land use.
Welcome. Thanks. Susan Kirsch, you may have to unmute yourself. There we go. Go ahead.
Susan Kirsch, also a longtime Marin chapter Sierra Club member. I was the original founder of Livable California and have started a new group called Catalysts.
Excellent. Thanks. Welcome. Yvonne Martinez Watson. You have to unmute you. There we go. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, John. I'm not showing my video because I'm still recovering from my second dose of the COVID vaccine.
Drink plenty of water and get good rest, but we appreciate you joining.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Hi, I'm the chair of the Sierra Club Angeles Chapter's Environmental and Social Justice Committee. I've been a Sierra Club member for about 10 years. I live in an environmental justice community. And I just wanted to give a shout out to my co-chair, Charming Evelyn. She's normally the person who handles housing issues for our committee, but she is currently recovering from neck surgery.
Wow. Well, we wish both of you guys a speedy recovery. And again, thanks for being here, Yvonne, especially, dealing with that. Daniel Tabor.
Thank you, John. Welcome, everybody. My name is Daniel Tabor. I'm former mayor of the city of Inglewood. I probably am the only one who has not been, during my lifetime, a member of the Sierra Club. However, I have had the benefit of being supported by many members of both NRDC, the Sierra Club, and several environmental organizations during my time as a councilman and mayor in the city of Inglewood. I too am a member of United Neighbors, and I look forward to our conversation today.
Thank you, sir.
And as you can see, I'm president also of Move LA.
Yep, we saw the backdrop. Thanks. Bill Smith.
Yes, I'm Bill Smith. I've been with the Sierra Club, not since I was 11, though, but it has been a while. I am a lifetime member. I'm also the co-chair of the Sierra Club's Environmental and Social Justice Committee at the state level. So, and I work closely with Yvonne Watson, Evelyn Charming, and other people as well.
So, Bill, you're saying Sarah outranks you then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's right. She does.
All right. Duly noted. Duly noted. Steve?
Yeah, I'm Steve Bertelbaugh. I chair the statewide committee on transportation and sustainable communities. And I've been the Sierra Club member on and off since the 1950s.
Oh, he's got us all beat.
Got it. Suzanne, you may have to unmute yourself. There we go.
Let me do someone else first. I'm going to close my door because my dogs are barking.
Your dogs want to be in the meeting, Suzanne. You can't discriminate against them.
Can you hear them?
A little bit. We'll come back to you. Leslie Purcell, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Leslie Purcell. I'm actually in Ventura. I have worked for many years with the Sierra Club and other groups in LA on the Bionah wetlands issue and the bluff we tried to save. Also the Indian burials, Native American issues, very important. And I ended up going to law school because of it. So
Wow.
I'm interested in all of this housing. You know, it's so important to have affordable housing, but how it's done and where it's done is so important. And I'm glad to have an architect on because that's important too, the design. And I'm also California Native Plant Society member, so I'm an advocate for native plants and trees too.
Got it. Thanks. All right, Suzanne, you got your dogs under control, so you can go ahead.
Okay, Culver City, West LA chapter. I was a lead organizer without the Sierra Club. They joined us much later, although we kept talking about it at meetings. We need to ban fracking, etc. And then we pulled together a meme and it drew everyone together. And here we are setting the legal precedent for ending urban drilling. And Sierra Club did play a good part in it, as to Food and Water Watch and Center for Biological Diversity. I mean, big heavy duty NGOs supported us. And I'm happy that a lot of big organizations are all supporting the infill housing. I get seriously concerned, and if anyone wants my track record on civil rights, I was blessed without knowing to shake hands with Martin Luther King Jr. and felt a sacred responsibility when I realized, and twice put my life on the line for my brothers and sisters of color. And so I'm in this because I hate seeing, I'm a fighter for justice. I hate seeing people screwed. I hate that, you know, first we steal the African people to be our slaves. You know, then they get their 40 acres, and what's happened to that? And now
Well, actually, we never got the 40 acres, but keep going. You're on a roll. You're on a roll. Keep going.
And then we have this big American dream, and our brothers and sisters struggle to get whatever peace they could eke out and work together. I'm getting chills saying this. And then beautiful things like Sugar Hill in Los Angeles are built where you have a healthy, vibrant African-American community, and the racism prevails with the freeway cutting right through to cut the people off from having community. And the people like John's father and grandfather and others created community. And now, just as people are ready to share this heritage with their children and others, we want to do good, and then we rape them of their heritage because the infill policy, and my doctorate's in social ethics and social analysis from USC in 1977 is when I got the doctorate. And I did it all on moral education. How do you do morals and teach morals without using religion as a basis for the ethic? But anyhow, so here people are ready, and lots of community is happening, very diverse, as Kathy Knight just attested to, and others. And we do need infill, and we could build up rather than out, build up above the traffic oriented corridors, and also all the government money that's out there. And there's more and more policy coming out from the feds, from the state, from whatever, and the words are all beautiful. But I wonder if these beautiful words, and if Sierra Club really gets into it, as they did with fracking, turns out to be, if you remember, Carl Pope basically sold us out to Chesapeake Energy, you know, going around even with the CEO promoting this as the bridge fuel. Well, it's been the bridge to a hell of a climate that we're struggling with, and yet no attention is being paid to the climate impacts. And, you know, we say as Sierra Club, we're going to go from grassroots up to GEMES or HEMES principles and really listen to the people. Which people are we listening to?
That is a key question.
I think I've said enough as an intro. I'm coming from my heart, and I'm coming with hope that enough people can see, yes, there is a need. Yes, we can address it. And we do not need to rape the environment. Or many of us, you know, they're attributing the enemy is the the white middle class who has most of the wealth, and therefore, and let's look at it. We all are the enemy, because the original people, where are they here at the table in anyone's conversations? So let's wake up and see how we can make reparations and build a future that is truly diverse. Thank you.
That was quite an introduction. Thanks, Suzanne. Igor, you have to unmute yourself, sir. There you go.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good, good. You got a tough act to follow there, brother.
I was just going to say I have a very tough act to follow, so I'm not going to follow that, but I'll just introduce myself. I use he, him pronouns. I'm on Chochenyo Alani land in Berkeley, California. I'm on the Sierra Club California Executive Committee, SF Bay Chapter Committee, and chair the Northern Alameda County Group, and look forward to being part of this conversation.
Great. Thanks. Glad you could be here. Susie Shannon.
Hi, I'm Susie Shannon. I'm the policy director with Housing as Human Right. I've worked with homeless and low-income communities since 2005. I agree wholeheartedly with Suzanne, and I hope looking forward to a very robust discussion on this particular issue. All in all, I think that any policy that disproportionately impacts Black and Brown communities and takes away single family homes in those communities should not be a policy of the Sierra Club. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie. And last but not least, my fellow UHA board member, Tony McDonald Tabor. Tony, you're on the phone, but go ahead and say hi to the folks.
Hello, everyone. Tony McDonald Tabor. I'm on the board of the United Homeowners Association, colleague of John's. Land use issues are very important to me and our community, and I'm happy to be on this call.
Great. And thanks everybody for doing that. Go ahead, Danny. What were you going to say?
Yeah, real quick, just for purposes of transparency, Tony is also my sister-in-law.
So there's a relation.
Okay.
You don't say, huh? You Tabors are prolific. You guys are taking over. That's funny. Thanks for clarifying. Let me hold that thought,
Another
Suzanne.
quick note about
Okay, go ahead.
Susie Shannon.
Mhm.
Susie is a hard worker. She's been on the right side of the environmental issues and worked her buns off to get this whole thing going in the city of LA, the position that she now occupies. So let's, tip of the hat to Susie, and let's work together with someone who's been highly active in the California Democratic Party over the years and boots on the ground working here. Glad to see you, Susie.
Thanks. So Steve, you said you wanted to have a conversation, so we put together some heavy hitters to share some thoughts with you. Hopefully we brought some people that can shed some light and bring some good perspectives that'll help you guys get some ammunition for the fight. What do you think?
Well, I am impressed that housing is a complex, multifaceted issue. And I guess one of the things I'd like to start with is, John, does your organization follow legislation? Does it support particular housing bills? And can you give us a quick list of the ones that you've been supporting and the ones you did indicate that you oppose both SB 9 and SB 10? Are there others that you have a position on?
Right. I'll give you a quick thumbnail, and I'm sure others will have some input on that point. We, being a small volunteer nonprofit, we just don't have the manpower, Steve, to really, man the battle stations and monitor all these different, we're dealing with issues here on the ground in our community on a day-to-day, but we're certainly aware of bills like SB 9 and SB 10, which obviously we oppose. ACA 2, which is the constitutional amendment to do away with Article 34, which is the ridiculous prohibition and requires a public vote on public housing. That should have been taken out of the Constitution a long time ago. We shouldn't have to wait for a homeless crisis to do that. So that's something that I think the majority of our members would support. the challenge for us is, as a board, we're kind of like you guys, just on a much smaller scale. We try to identify and think through some of the policy issues and make good decisions and recommendations. But, putting that stuff before our members for a vote and so forth is very difficult and challenging. So, a lot of time, that's why we affiliate with groups like United Neighbors, which is a much broader coalition that, many people that are on the call are also affiliated with, and I'm sure they have some thoughts. Let me do this, if you don't mind, Steve. Let me go to a couple of the folks that had their hands up and see if they have some germane points, and then we can circle back. Patricia, you may have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I was doing that for my fish tank. Yes, I would like to find out. It was a bit of a surprise to me to hear that and to receive the housing from 2018. And yet, as a Sierra Club member, we're going through a review of this infill policy. And well, thank you to John that we're able to have this engagement to discuss this. But as a Sierra Clubber, thus far, we have not been able to participate or discuss these issues, and to now learn that, excuse me, I've spent a all volunteer life. I don't get paid for the work I do at all, and it has become full-time effort. This is not a hobby, working on oil and gas issues, wildlife. We've saved habitat. I've changed the methane code in the city of LA and other areas, gotten wells abandoned properly. I don't pay attention to everything coming down the line, so I expect the Sierra Club to kind of nudge me and say, hey, this is something that affects you. I'm a single family homeowner. I have a tiny little house with a little yard, and I feel threatened by this. And my umbrella organization never even gave me a heads up that this was coming down the pike, let alone respond to a voluminous response that we put in to the club on this. So why is that? Why are we so detached?
Steve and Bill or others that can speak on it, are you guys familiar with the document that Patricia is talking about, the response?
I am.
Who said that? I'm sorry.
This is Yvonne.
Oh, okay, good.
Hi, I just wanted to put it out there that Sierra Club has been conducting outreach. We did have a town hall for volunteers on this, and it was advertised. I remember seeing it advertised on the Angeles chapter. So
yeah, but when? How long ago? Because I'm talking about
it was about a month.
years.
It was about a month or 2 months ago.
Right.
It was recent, and I just want to say that my committee, the Environmental and Social Justice Committee, we were created in 2018. Was our first year that we were actually a committee, and we have been discussing housing issues since our creation. And we do post our minutes that are available to anybody in the chapter. Anybody can join our listserv. And so we have been trying to keep people updated on that. And like I said, Charming is much more knowledgeable about this than I am, just because it's such a complicated issue. We decided to create a subcommittee of our committee just to handle housing. So unfortunately, she's laid up right now, and I'm being probably a little overly protective, but she really needs to rest and get herself back on her feet so she can get back in the
yeah. Yvonne, if I could just interrupt there, though, I'm aware of a lot of the issues that we're going through in Los Angeles with the river project and displacing people, with all the high-end luxury development that's being discussed for that. But to actually have an infill policy, when I read this draft infill policy, it was extremely alarming how the tone of how it's written. It does read like a developer propaganda. So that in particular is what I'm addressing. I'm not addressing all of the river project and this and that we do.
Patricia, if I may interrupt, I'm sorry, you interrupted me first. Yes, I'm talking about the infill policy. And I'm talking about the fact that the Angeles Chapter's Conservation Committee did ask for input on the infill policy.
I'm aware.
So they did cover it. And so, you know, I myself, I'm a renter and I live in an SB 535 disadvantaged community. I live in a community that would have been extremely adversely affected by some of the bills that were previously proposed for transit-oriented development. You know, I'm in a single-family house right now, but I'm a renter. And I'm surrounded by large apartment complexes. I was very lucky to get this little house. We happen to know the people that live here, that own the house. And the reason we ended up here is because I used to live on a busy street in a second floor apartment. And it was very convenient for my husband. My husband has been taking public transportation since before we were married. He rides the bus every day, an hour and a half to work, an hour and a half home. And so, you know, he had an apartment that was right on a busy street with a bus stop. And every day on the second floor, we would have black soot covering everything.
Hey, Yvonne, let me ask you, just for clarity, for those of us that don't speak all the legislative language, what's an SB 535 affected community and what part of LA are you in? Just so we know.
I'm not in actually the city of LA, but I'm in the city of Montebello, which shares a border with East Los Angeles.
Okay.
And my home was like right across the street, like I think the other side of the street, or no, I'm sorry, like about a couple blocks away from where I lived is where the border of East Los Angeles started. So I was on a really busy highway, and SB 535 talks about environmental injustice, where you can look it up, just type in SB 535 and you'll see a map of the entire state of California where they rank environmental, any kind of adverse environmental impacts to different communities.
Got it.
So they'll show you which communities are being the most affected by air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution. They'll tell you which toxins, they'll tell you the demographics of the community, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a wealth of information.
I'm sure we're on that list too, given our proximity to the Inglewood oil field, et cetera. So
yeah, you probably are.
Yep, that's good to know.
So that was one of the reasons why this committee on environmental and social justice was created, because there wasn't enough attention being given to these types of communities, because this is not a traditional environmental concern. You know, we're not out to save a particular mountain or a particular habitat, or you know, fighting a particular issue, like, you know, even though we do have an endangered, threatened species in our town. This is talking about major sources of pollution that are affecting people. And it's overwhelmingly people of color, and Black, brown communities everywhere.
Right.
And these are the same communities that have been strongly affected, where the majority of deaths have occurred due to COVID. And it is proven it's because these communities have already been weakened by the environmental pollution. And that's one of the reasons why they were hit so hard. So that's why this committee was created, was to try to do something about those communities. So when we're talking about housing, we need to try to keep on track here that affordable housing is generally geared towards people of color. I mean, that's just the way it is. And communities of color have often been used as a buffer zone for wealthier, whiter communities to separate them from pollution sources. And that is something that we always need to keep in mind when we're talking about housing. Because yes, it would be wonderful if we lived in a perfect world where people lived close to transit lines and lived in high density. And you know, maybe we'll get there someday, because now with the end of fossil fuels in sight, that may happen sooner than we were expecting it to happen. But right now, the main people who are suffering from things like air pollution are the people living closest to these type of major transit lines, either buses, truck traffic, or railroad lines.
So I definitely appreciate that, Yvonne. Let me ask the obvious question then, to not necessarily to you, but to folks here that representing the Sierra Club. Given what you just said, Yvonne, about the need for smarter land use planning when it comes to density and housing affordability and equity, what's the position of the Sierra Club on things like SB 9 and SB 10? Have you guys actually taken a position on those two bills?
I can speak to that. No, the Sierra Club has not taken a position in those two bills. They're very late. It will be considered the
Bill,
Sierra Club.
Bill, I verified this after speaking with Susie yesterday. We are opposed to SB 10 and have no position on SB 9.
Okay, thank you for updating me on that.
Okay.
There you go.
Interesting. So against SB 10, so obviously we're thinking alike on that, but no position on SB 9. Maybe we can come back and have some more conversation on that. Joan, you have your hand up and you've been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, the Sierra Club, the LA chapter, and by the way, before I forget, I was on the executive committee for 2 terms, so I'm familiar with certain things. And anyway, I chimed in, I called in from home because they were voting on minimum wages, and they wanted to raise the minimum wage for LA workers, LA city workers only. And the reason I'm starting there is because I asked, well, a simple question: why is it the purview of the Sierra Club to get involved with this? I'm a teacher, and the teachers' aides are making less, and some of them are college graduates, and you want the LA city workers. So if you're going to be weighing in on minimum wages, well, hey, then why aren't you going after the teachers? How about teacher aides? They're only making $12 an hour, $14 an hour. And the answer was no. And Sierra Club was off and running, getting into politics. And I'm saying that because I understand the plight of what a lot of people are saying, but I have to disagree when some people say that there's an issue only with, and I hope I don't step on anyone's toes, and I'm Jewish and I certainly understand oppression, that it's not just people of color. You go around to Redondo Beach where the AES plant is, and you talk to Bill Brandt when his friends are dying, and that's why he wants to close the power plant. Go talk to people who live around the ExxonMobil plant, which is now the Torrance plant, and then talk to the people where the air is all flowing. I've spent a lot of time, I know Joe Liu pretty well, and now Joe Liu is on the AQMD board, and I've worked with him for a long time about air pollution. People like Al Muratucci refuse to put in air pollution stations in the South Bay region. The only one we have is Long Beach, and then the next closest one is LAX. But the South Bay region, which he oversees, has a totally different airflow pattern. We are besieged with a lot of pollution, and the reason we don't have that station is because they don't want anyone, I believe, to know. That's my theory anyway. I wanted to know, I have some basic questions here. I want to know who's responsible for the sudden crisis, housing crisis in our state. I don't know if there really is a housing crisis. LA City has in their hand $1 billion. The people of LA City voted for the proposition HHH. I've delved a lot into this because I'm working with people who represent the veterans who are living on Wilshire Boulevard in tents, and they're holding on to it. These billionaires have the taxpayers' money, and we're supposed to be building affordable units or units for homeless. They haven't done so. So I think LA City is #1 on the hit list for being responsible, because they are the ones who are taking down things like a huge garden apartment complex named Wyvernwood, where thousands were displaced of low income, and then they had nowhere to go. And now it was sold out to a very wealthy Florida developer. He's going to put up high-end units. They have nowhere to go. So I think LA, but that was one example. LA is very responsible for putting people out of their homes. The Sierra Club talks about VMT and climate change and everything that they do. And just going back for a second, the policy that the Sierra Club had at National is very different than this infill guidance, because this infill guidance is basically, as Patricia was saying, is endorsing the bills like SB 9 and 10, because they will erase the CEQA in California. And that's huge to me. So when the Sierra Club is talking about the vehicles traveling, vehicle miles traveled a day, and that affects climate change, yeah, it does, but not as much as methane. And Patricia and I have worked a long time on methane together. And AQMD gives a pass or an exemption to things like the Palos Verdes landfill, which is polluting or throwing up methane every day into the atmosphere, which greatly contributes to this. And I could point out a lot of other things, but methane is much more powerful, and that's not once referenced that I saw in the thing that came out. Who put Gavin Newsom in power? Real estate developers and others. They want this very badly because they are going to make a fortune. And not just Newsom, other people who are in power. These real estate developers are waiting and biting, or what's the word, chomping at the bit, that phrase. They want to put this housing up. I don't want this housing up. I want to be fair to everybody and get good housing and get affordable housing. But I could tell you that in 2007, when my son was earning $36,000 a year, he couldn't even rent an apartment then because it was costing him more than 30% of his salary. We had to sign on for him for a lease on an apartment. And, you know, it's like, now they're saying no one should be able to have to do that, but that's the way it is. It's nothing new is my point. Number 3, but lastly here, because I'm very emotional about this, John, as you can tell. I looked up Tim Frank's No on Measure R. He was the head of the No on Measure R in Berkeley. And I really don't understand that at all, because to me, it would have limited a lot of the things that I think some of us are against, but for whatever be the reason he did it. But he's one of the authors of the infill guidance document that we're talking about. And I looked up an op-ed piece that he and others contributed to. And one of the statements made was, wouldn't it be better left to planning staff and commissions in cities? Yes, it would be. The housing should be left up, I believe, to the planning staff in certain commissions in cities. Because if we follow what this infill guidance is telling us, the infill guidance is using examples of Waco, Texas, places that I've never heard of across the United States, and Iowa, Kansas. That has nothing to do with my little community. It has nothing to do with John's community where he's worried about the oil and the fracking. Every individual community is different. And I don't think you can apply what the Sierra Club is trying to apply to every city. And just want to talk about density for a quick second. San Francisco already has 246 people per square mile for density. Hermosa Beach has over 13,000, about 13,500. Redondo, 10,700. We already have a lot of high density. I don't think that we can build much more in certain communities than we already have. San Francisco is lucky, and I did live there for a while because of the transportation systems. Where I live, which is Palos Verdes, we have very steep hills and mountains, ravines. You're not going to get buses going up. We have a hard time getting one bus going up and down the 2 main corridors. I don't know why the Sierra Club is jumping into this political hot potato. I think that they would be better served in a more general way. But right now, if they are backing the bills like SB 9, because they are as of today, that is terrible. That's terrible because that will erase CEQA. And
well, I think Igor said they had no position on 9, right?
Yeah, well, they are basically by being silent are doing that. And believe me, people have asked them to oppose it. SB 10 doesn't do much because unless you're community, it only affects certain communities. SB 9 requires every city to do certain things. That's different. I'm
Yep.
sorry, I'll stop my rant. Thank you.
No, that's okay. That would you said a lot in that rant, Joan. And let me just touch on a couple of things, and I'm going to go to Jeff and Susie. Existing housing stock. We talked a little bit about that on Saturday as much as you can, and you know, these Zoom calls are kind of limited in the depth that you can go. But I'm curious as to whether the Sierra Club has really, or anybody has really taken a comprehensive look at how much affordable and really all levels of housing could be recovered and produced just by taking advantage of, you know, notwithstanding now we've got all these commercial sites that, you know, are going to be available because the retail business has gone in the tank. You know, I wonder what the, not I wonder, I know there's a huge number of existing housing that's either vacant or in need of renovation and so forth. That's got to be a little more environmentally and economically efficient than building from the ground up. So that's a key point. And then also in reading you guys' 2018 white paper, I did note a very strong emphasis on, you know, the importance of local control and local participation in the planning process and in these decisions. So when bills like SB 9 come through, they're pretty much, as Joan and others have said, rips the heart out of the idea of local control, and not to mention CEQA. That does seem to be something that we would see the Sierra Club really stand up on and exercise some leadership and some restraint with the folks in Sacramento. But what do I know? Jeff, did you want to weigh in on a particular point?
Yes, thank you, John. To those who don't know me, as I said earlier, I'm an architect. I'm with United Neighbors. My wife, Maria Pavlou-Calvin, originated United Neighbors, and the two of us have given Zoom meeting town halls to about 40, a little over 40 communities up and down California. And when we give these reports on SB 9 and SB 10, inevitably, somebody says, why isn't the Sierra Club fighting these bills? We have been following many bills. We support SB 15, we're against 477, 478, and a few others that are devious, anti-people bills, anti-housing bills, certainly anti-equitable, affordable housing. We're not against density. We're for smart planning. And one of the things that we're working towards is just that. How do you get real world solutions to equitable, affordable housing? Now, on these bills, SB 9 most critically damages our environment. They have 4-foot setbacks, side yards and rear yards. That means a developer is going to go in there, going to buy a piece of property, whether they split the lot or not. I'm an architect, I work with developers. They're going to use every square inch they can. They're going to go to those 4-foot setbacks. They're going to lose yards. When you lose yards, you lose trees. In the USC report, 85% of the urban canopy in Los Angeles is on single-family residential properties. When you lose yards, you lose permeable surfaces. Therefore, we lose the ability for our rainwater and other water from sprinklers, what have you, to percolate down and refresh our aquifers. With 4-foot side yards and rear yards, you're going to have stormwater runoff, which means that downhill, you're going to have erosion. With SB 9 and SB 10, you have no CEQA protection. If you have no CEQA protection, and I've done projects in the Palisades, in Calabasas, and lots of sensitive areas where you have to work around live oaks and other protected trees. With CEQA gone, you have no more protected trees. You have no more limit to grading. Okay, think of a developer. I can go in there, because I've spoken to developers who want to do projects like the old Bob Hope estate in Toluca Lake. They want to take down all those protected trees. And one of these guys said, I don't care, so I get a $100,000 fine. I'll pay it, just the cost of doing business. But when CEQA's gone, they don't even have a fine to worry about. They just take those trees down. So this is a terrible thing for the Sierra Club not to be fighting. It is such a terrible scam This is a purely a developer speculator bill, SB 9. Very happy you're against 10. 10 is even worse because 10 allows simple majority of city councils to overturn voter initiatives that protect open spaces. So thank God you're against 10, but you have to come out against 9 too. Everybody we speak to demands it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff. Before I go to Susie, anybody want to comment or respond to anything?
Yes.
Hold on. I was actually gonna,
Okay.
I want to make sure I get everybody who hasn't had a chance to speak yet. So I'll come back to you, Patricia. Susie Shannon, you want to unmute and go ahead? And then I see Igor's got his hand up, and then Patricia will come back to you. Go ahead, Susie.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. So I'm the drafter of SB 1380, which provided a housing first model for our unhoused community and was authored by Holly Mitchell. Okay, I work with our unhoused community. I work on housing policy all day. We have 161,000 people pre-COVID pandemic who are unhoused in the state of California. The fact that we have two bills now, SB 9 and SB 10, and I would say that this has been happening every single year consistently for our major housing bills. The fact that we have SB 9 and 10, which won't provide even one unit of housing for our unhoused community, not one unit for our low-income tenants, because it doesn't provide for affordable housing. It doesn't provide for homeless housing. And this happens again and again. And the reason for this is because developers don't want that. Developers want profit, and they're going after profit. And we are supposed to look away from the fact that we have a homelessness crisis and a housing crisis for people who are low income. And once we frame it in that way, which is really what's going on, you can see that from any moral, any even economic model, that you have to oppose SB 9 and 10. We can't just allow developers to come in and not give one care to our unhoused community, not give one care to low-income tenants who are becoming unhoused. And we're putting billions of dollars now into helping our unhoused community, right, which is a humanitarian crisis right now. Billions of taxpayer dollars, because we never in this state ever put developers in check and said the planning needs to come from the government end, not from developers, right? And right now, developers, the developer model has made people unhoused, has left tenants rent burdened and facing eviction. And the Sierra Club should be on the side of sustainable communities that actually help people. So I really feel like this resolution is a backdoor way into supporting legislation like SB 9 and 10. Even though Sierra Club is on the record as opposing SB 10, you know that once this passes and it says, you know, we don't believe in single family zoning or single family home zoning, that's what's going to go around Sacramento. And they're not going to talk about affordable housing, and they're not going to talk about homeless housing. They're just going to talk about the fact that we should be not having single family home zoning. And the only communities that are going to be targeted are low income Black and brown communities, because that is where the land is cheapest. And that is how you make more of a profit, by buying land at a low cost, building, you know, 2 duplexes, or, you know, in the case of SB 10 units, and then selling, renting them out for market rate. Okay, so no one should be disabused of the fact that this is for anyone who can actually afford housing. Okay, this is turning California into a playground for the rich and famous. So you have to have a certain income in order to even live here. Okay, and we need to stop this. I mean, this is outrageous. This is, you know, a moral calling, I think, to help people, you know, live. First of all, you know, also from another angle, you can't say that only people who live in Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Westwood, etc., where primarily affluent whites are the only homeowners that we're going to have. You can't say we're going to turn people into a permanent renter class in areas that did have single family homes and did have a lot of political power. You can't say that we're going to turn that it's okay to turn these neighborhoods into permanent renter neighborhoods. And then we're saying because land is more expensive in Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Westwood, that we're not going to really touch those homes, because that is the outcome of legislation like SB 9 and 10. Okay, I am formally unhoused. My family, was unhoused several times when I was a kid. And I can tell you that, basically leaving people with nowhere to go and rising rents is unconscionable. We live in the homeless capital of the United States for people who live here in LA, and we have 161,000 people who are homeless in this state pre-COVID. So we don't even know what those numbers are. They're likely higher than that. So I'm just begging everyone on this call, please understand that everything that we care about is on the line right now. Okay, we're either going to be on the side of developers who want to amass profit and then use that profit to try to kill rent control, to try to kill initiatives about rent control, or we're going to take a stand, a very progressive stand, to say, no, I'm sorry, but you can have as many developers as you want, writing as many bills as you want, but Sierra Club is basically standing strong against this. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie. Excellent points. And that what Susie was saying is really what rings true with us about SB 9 is that, it's not necessary to go in and destroy single family neighborhoods in the name of trying to create more affordable housing when you have a bill that's not even creating one unit of affordable housing. That's the confounding thing about it. It would be different if there was something that said, oh, well, 50%, 60% of the housing units created here under have to be affordable. The only reference to affordability in SB 9 and SB 10 is passing reference to the imperative of affordable housing in California. So that's not what we need. And I hope you guys do seriously consider taking I saw Igor had to drop off, unfortunately, and he put something in the chat about the process to get the Sierra Club to take a position or reconsider a position on a bill. But I hope you guys reconsider that, because your leadership does matter and your voice is listened to. So let's see, I think Yvonne, Patricia, I know you wanted to go ahead, Patricia, then Yvonne, Joan, go ahead, Patricia.
I just want to applaud what Joan had to say, what Susie had to say. I mean, and John, your numbers on all of this are so important to get out there. And as a Sierra Club member, how many Sierra Club members, once they understand what's going on here, are going to quit being Sierra Club members because of the lack of accountability here? I agree with Joan. I mean, all of our pollution issues are across the board. Granted, there may be more in areas of color. I've certainly worked all across this city trying to get it stopped. We also have it in neighborhoods that are far more expansive than where I live. We're talking about SoCal Gas, Playa del Rey, Venice, Marina del Rey, all these areas that are impacted by underground gas storage that is coming up all over the place. There are solutions that aren't being even addressed. Like we have University City Syndicate is an oil well that is gushing out of the freshwater marsh in Bayona wetlands right next to Playa Vista. These are all very scary issues. We have all of the outgassing coming up through Playa Vista that if you have a mitigation system that simply pipes it into the atmosphere, that's not a solution to methane coming out. We have enormous issues that need to be dealt with. And I think that gets lost in this mix. And Sierra Club should be focused on those issues. I have not seen one thing. I've only seen things, for instance, that Tim Frank has been engaged with and has promoted on behalf of the Sierra Club that have what you've said, John, what Susie said. not one affordable unit that is produced by all of this infill that they are promoting. So where is the accountability on this? And if the Sierra Club is going to promote this, show us the accountability. Give us some examples, because I haven't seen any examples. Show the examples.
Thanks, Patricia. Yvonne, you may have to unmute you. There we go. Go ahead, Yvonne.
Yeah. I have to start off by saying I'm looking around at the people in this Zoom meeting, and I have to say that I'm very encouraged to hear the outrage that's going on. But I have to ask myself, where are you guys? Why do you not show up for things that, for instance, my committee has been doing for the longest time? And I just wanted to put that out there because from my point of view, I didn't get a chance to tell you the end of my story. The reason my family had to leave our apartment, even though it was in a really bad location and with really bad, a dust problem, black soot, and all three of us with asthma, is because the building was sold. And the new owners told us they were going to convert it to condominiums. And we, who had lived there for a long time, knew exactly the physical condition of that building. My husband had to jerry rig the electrical. We did not have three-prong units, three-prong plugs in the building. So to run his computer, he had to jerry rig something. And when they renovated the outside of the building, they tore off the facing off the front and quickly covered it up with plastic before I could get a picture of it. The inside was filled with mold. And then they told us that the price for staying in our unit was going to skyrocket. So yes, I am very familiar with what's going on when it comes to affordable housing and how people take advantage of people who can't afford these types of units. And they always seem to offer the crappiest units to the people who are in desperate need and will pay whatever they can because they can't find anything else.
Yep. Yeah, and Yvonne, on that point that you made about the communication and knowing about what you and your committee and other important stakeholders are doing, I'm speaking for UHA and for United Neighbors when I say, all we need to do is get the information, and we're happy to, quite frankly, you should be part of our organization because,
I will consider that, because at this point in time, I'm just telling you, I am a leader with the Sierra Club, and this is my first time in leadership, even though I've been in Sierra Club for like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a real struggle because even with this infill development policy, all of the points that are being made right now with such fervent passion are the points that I have made. Because I can tell you where I live, the people that I know, like in Boyle Heights, who have worked for generations to have their own small little house, only to find out that the homes are contaminated with lead.
Right.
These are the same neighborhoods that under previous legislation were slated to be demolished for affordable housing.
Right. Yeah.
And it was like, you got to be kidding me. That's ridiculous. So I'm the one who's been advocating for, we need to have a policy that is equitable to everyone, including people who have worked forever to get something to pass on to their children. And, that's why when bills come up like this and I look at these bills, I always comment on them and tell Sierra Club, this is a bad bill because of these reasons. As I give them a laundry list of reasons. So it's really encouraging to hear people interested in housing. But I'm hearing a lot of periphery issues being discussed here that it's inevitable. People always want to talk about their own issue rather than the issues that we are addressing at the moment. And right now we're talking about affordable housing.
Right. And I appreciate that. And Yvonne, I don't know if we have your contact info, but if you don't mind either emailing it to me or putting that in the chat, I'd appreciate that. And on that last point that you made about, let's just call it, kind of selfish vision and approach to problems. I think if you really listen to what everybody is saying on this call, it really is striking to me how common the themes are and the issues are, and how you can almost follow, there's a thread that connects here issues of, economic exploitation, environmental degradation, poor, low income communities of color, and housing policy. And, we've got to, obviously, I think everybody here agrees that we can't keep doing the same thing the same way, because what happens? You're not going to get a different result. So we need to start being smarter about the way we do things. We definitely need to start being more collaborative. And, it's not always easy conversations. And a lot of times we're so used to talking at each other. Sometimes we're not good at listening, but I think we should definitely continue the conversation, because there's some good stuff here that needs to get identified.
Yes, and I just wanted to end by, in terms of trusting our local governments to do the right thing, not where I live,
Right.
they approved a housing project that we fought for years and years and years. I mean, boots on the ground, attending city council meetings every 2 weeks, bringing out all the information we had, scientific evidence, everything. This is a housing project that is currently being built.
Yep.
That will be mostly market unit housing.
Is that in Montebello? It's in
Montebello, with the entire neighborhood surrounded by oil wells.
Yeah, we need you. And I mean, this is exactly why we form United Neighbors, because we recognize the importance and the power of bringing people together from across really the state. But, different communities that may have some differences in terms of the specifics on the ground, but the common theme is what you just said. We don't have enough influence and connection on the decisions that influence our day-to-day lives and activities in our community. So we'll talk some more about that for sure.
Thank you.
I see you waving, Suzanne. I'm coming to you. I'm going to go on. I'm going to go.
I'm just chomping at the bit. If I can go.
Hold your thought. I'm gonna exercise a little bit of moderator discipline, but I'm gonna come to you as quickly as I can. Joan, Susan, and Leslie. Go ahead, Joan.
All right, let me see. Am I still unmuted?
No, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to assure Yvonne that I've been fighting, but everybody, LA is, when you say LA, it's huge, right? More people, it's almost more the county than the city, or it is. And rest assured that at least I have been personally fighting. I've been personally fighting the ExxonMobil plant. I've been working until she retired, Andre Rico from USC Keck Hospital, because of the horrible air quality the kids had at the schools along the freeways. I've been working with the San Pedro people. The problem that I see right now with the Sierra Club, I belong to the PV South Bay group. They didn't send me any of this. If Patricia Mcpherson didn't contact me about this, I wouldn't have known. And that's not good. And I really think that's an issue. I don't know how to solve it, but it's an issue for me personally. That's the point. And as far as I talked about the methane, at the Palos Verdes
Stop talking about it.
What?
I'm sorry, Joan, but we're not here to talk about the methane. We're talking about affordable housing.
Thank you. I'm talking about what the Sierra Club should be involved in. And I am saying, Yvonne, that affordable housing is not something that's in the mission statement of the Sierra Club. And the problem here is that if they are going to send in, you want to change the policy, fine. But then you've got to vote on it, and to say that they're going to try to ensure that any substantial changes to CEQA would not happen, or that's stupid, because Senate Bill 9 is wiping out CEQA. You'll be gone. You will have no more public hearings.
Joan, I don't think the Sierra Club is trying to weaken CEQA. That's the point.
No,
That's
it's
why every time
exactly
it comes
right.
up, it's like, I don't think that Sierra Club is intending to weaken CEQA.
And they should
And
oppose
if
it
it
at the line.
is,
Then why
and
don't you
if it
do
is,
that?
I'll be one of the people telling them, don't do that.
Well,
Well,
then
I think if I can, Joan, I think the point that Joan is trying to make is just that by not taking a position on SB9, which, you know, neutral third party observers pretty much say is one of the biggest CEQA exemptions in history, they're by definition, you know, standing aside and allowing something that would gut CEQA to move forward. I think that's the point.
Right. So I feel badly that Yvonne has faced such travesty, such terrible conditions where she live. I'm sorry. If I had known, I would have been there to help you, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like we all have our issues. We can't be everywhere. We're such a big region, which is what I was trying to point out. And it's
Yep.
very hard.
Yep. It's and it's that way for a reason, folks. That's why what we're doing with this building consensus and new ways to collaborate is so important. Susan, go ahead.
Well, I appreciate the passion and the points that so many people are making, and understand that too, as much as there's 18 of us on the call right now, that all of us have circles of other people who are working pretty, really very, very hard on various aspects of housing and accountability. With the importance of the Sierra Club taking a stand on Senate Bill 9, what I want to bring forward is that this is especially important in California because across the nation, similar kinds of measures will be rolled out if it's not stopped here in California. That I don't know how many of you know that there is a national bill called the Yimbi Act. And the Yimbis being kind of the front runners, the leaders of persuading city councils and legislators to vote for these atrocious housing measures and weakening CEQA, thinking it is the way to get more affordable housing, which most of us on this call probably all know is a myth. But for the Sierra Club not to take a stand in opposition to Senate Bill 9, here in California, just sends a dreadful message to the rest of the country, including what the housing policies are that are being brought forward by our current president, who, I'm so glad he's president, but his housing policies are also calling for a change in single family zoning, and probably going along with that is weakening CEQA. So if I can just take a minute to say one other thing in terms of the context within which I think we're all doing battle on many, many fronts. We probably all remember the housing crisis of 2008. And I want to just hold up this book called Home Wreckers for any of you to understand that this subtitle tells you what we're facing now in a even fiercer form than it was existing in 2008. And the subtitle of this book by Aaron Glantz is How a Gang of Wall Street Kingpins, Hedge Fund Magnates, Crooked Banks, and Vulture Capitalists suckered millions out of their homes and demolished the American dream. And this based on a whole principle of giving false information and false methodology, and just based on so many things that are not true. And the way that that's what's happening with our legislators who are carrying out the wishes of globalized housing or crooked banks and vulture capitalists is the magnitude of what we're facing. So in any of the places that this can be stopped, but especially with CEQA protections coming from those of you who are leaders in the Sierra Club and all of the rest of us who are members, this is just a really important point for taking a stand on supporting CEQA.
Thanks for that, Susan. And that's important for all of us as informed citizens to spread that word and make sure we're not letting stuff go by when we need to be sounding the alarm. Leslie, you've been waiting patiently. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks. I really appreciate what Susan just said, and I was going to bring up that the cities, in fact, and counties to some extent have an interest in allowing all this development because, they get income. They get income from these large projects. And I've been to planning meetings and city council meetings here in Ventura working on the general plan update. And the planning director actually said that, that they have to balance the economic interests. And if the general plan allows certain developments, they get to go through without any kind of real say in what and how they're designed. I mean, a little bit, but it's just a problem with, you know, who has the power. And I guess that the state's going to try and take away, if this passes, even more than the cities already have given up, as far as I can tell. And we have foreign investors too, and that's really also an issue, that people, you know, they're not local at all, that are buying a lot of these properties and then redeveloping. A small beach house near me wants to be changed from a 960 square foot single family home to a 3,114 square foot, and still single family, but most of them aren't really lived in, these giant places. And in this one, they want to have a pool, and we're right at the seashore with, you know, I mean, anyway, it's just, and these are not for real people. These are for investors, and, you know.
I was about to say, Leslie, that sounds like an Airbnb palace in waiting.
Could be. Well, they're trying to regulate that a little bit, but they haven't managed to do that yet in Ventura. The other thing, I was going to just thank Jeffrey Calvin, because he explained a lot of what I try and say sometimes in terms of the environmental footprint of these giant buildings, and the fact that they don't allow, you know, the kind of infiltration of water, and also the green space that's so important for our air, and temperature control too. So there are a lot of climate impacts, and those are also health impacts. So anyway, that was pretty much what I wanted to say. I appreciate your emphasis on collaboration and consensus and listening to each other also.
Thank
Very
you.
important.
Thanks. Kathy, then Suzanne, Zelda, and Bill, and then we'll probably be done unless you guys just want to turn this into a marathon. Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay. Yeah, I wish we had some kind of better studies of in a city, how many affordable units are already there, and how many market rate. Because in Santa Monica, they say, you know, well, we need more development, you know, but there's something like 4,000 empty market rate apartments, 4,000 of them that are just built, like people are saying, as investments by developers. And, you know, the city can't pay its pensions anymore, so they're making deals with developers. If they'll put in a couple affordable units, then they get to build these huge market rate developments, and then they get money for the deal. And we need what the Sierra Club, in terms of the Sierra Club, you know, the Sierra Club supposedly is based on democracy, you know, bottom up, and that's what we should keep following. And it's based on nature, you know, like children being able to see trees and birds and squirrels, and you know, maintaining nature in our cities so that children can grow up with that and get connected to it. And also, I have one of the big concrete buildings in my neighborhood, a couple of blocks from me, huge concrete building that takes up the whole lot, 4-foot setback, and they are horrible. I can tell you. I mean, it's bad. So I really appreciate the work we're all putting into this to try to stop those being built all over our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Yep, and make sure that the right things get built, and maybe, you know, in addition to building, you know, repurposing what's already there to be more efficient. Thanks, Kathy. Suzanne?
Okay, I have a few points I'll go through as fast.
You've been saving it up for us, huh, Suzanne?
Oh God. I want to thank Yvonne for getting me like so friggin' angry. What was that movie? I'm so mad. I'm not going to take it anymore.
That would be Network.
Yeah, and that's Susie and Yvonne and many people I know. Like, I have to hold back tears by being angry. You know, the shit we do to other human beings in the name of helping them. I mean, the terrible doublespeak, but my heart is with you, Yvonne, and we need to work with you. You know, you need to be our lead person on this, you and Susie and others, because you are speaking from experience and no one can challenge that. You've suffered, and let them try to challenge that. So we need to be with you. And I'm sorry, I didn't know about all this until John dragged me in when we were talking about how we have to finish cleaning up the friggin' oil field. You know, but anyhow, we're with you. I'm with you. So as a social analyst, if you look at trends, you know, everybody follows the money. And I don't want Sierra Club to do that. And that's what I get afraid of. You know, we did it with Carl Pope. Let's not do it now with whoever's behind. You know, let's get it straight that we do what we're supposed to do, which is the environment and environmental justice. So I'll come back to that in a minute. But if you look at history of the United States, you know, first it was the slavery that made you tons of money, then the gold, you know, and then the gold, the Federal Reserve took care of that. So what's the next biggest thing? Oil. Now we're going to shut down oil, and the land grabbers are there, and we're their monopoly. You know, like a monopoly game that everybody is being played. And what you do when you want to destroy something, if you're Machiavellian, you get the same people are going to suffer the most to pit against each other. You know, we pit the black against the white, the against the Latinos, then the gays, now the trans, and now it's the missing middle class. That's how they're selling this BS. The missing middle. We're going to provide housing for the missing middle. And those of you who know, as Kathy said, and Yvonne, you probably know, what about the redevelopment agencies that got tons of money from the state when Jerry Brown stopped it because it wasn't being used properly? And the homelessness and housing has been lack of affordable housing growing for years, because all they had to do is a pittance. Maybe you want to do your project this big, you have to do 10% or something, or whatever. It's like 2 or 3 units out of a 25 unit apartment or whatever. How is that really affording where the need is? It's just feeding developers and feeding it's like how much can a body grow before it bursts? But let me keep moving on. So like take Culver City, 3,000 more workers are coming in from Apple. Why did the city not negotiate, saying you have to create live workspace, not just humongous office buildings? Okay, so let me close with Sierra Club. I'm a member, almost all of us here are members. We need to do what our mission is. If our mission is the environment, let's not just get suckered in with, well, there's going to be less vehicle miles traveled if we build on the transit-oriented corridors, and then you don't build there because you don't put it in. I mean, all the double speak in this legislation, and what about the environmental costs of the demolition of existing homes, the destruction of the urban canopies, the trees and the heat sinks that help us? What about the loss of again, further methane and crap into the air from the production of cement and the cutting down of trees? You know, has anybody done the factors there, done the math of comparing one to another, when the VMTs, if we're true to what we just stated as a state, within 10 years, we're almost going to be all electrified. So you're going to build a 200 to 300 year solution, or push for that, for a 10-year problem. I'm overstating it, but I think you get the point. So let's demand full environmental accountability, full CEQA, stop giving us a half-truth is a lie, you know, one element BMT, and yet everything else that's going to suffer. How do they compare? Where is the net gain? And then critical is the environmental justice. Why don't these bills read something like, and we will work with each community or leave it to municipalities so that the people in this area of Montebello can meet, because we've got all this federal money and state money and whatever, and design the kind of community they would like to be living in. Because they are going to be throwing, I was reading some of the federal stuff, they're going to give vouchers and waivers and big fat checks to help people who lost their homes in 2008 to buy new homes if some of these bills pass. And they're all over the United States, builders, develop, whatever. The oil story, it's being played out with the building people. We need to organize, and we're all organizers at some level, our people to demand true environmental justice. And if you're going to do it truly, you've got to sit down with the people who've been suffering and who know better than the great white, mothers or fathers who fly in and then screw up and ruin a community. We've got to sit down with one another and with these builders. There are many who are of good heart, and work out the solutions that the community truly needs, rather than the land grab that I talked about earlier that makes us and whatever little bit of earth we're sitting on a commodity for the 1%. Thank you for listening.
Exactly.
And
Thanks, Suzanne.
Steve and Bill, we need you. Yvonne, we need you all to, I'll be there Saturday. I'm a paying member. I guess I can speak, but we need to get back to, I keep thinking of, I come from a Catholic tradition where one of the popes said the Catholic Church was both the bride of Christ and the whore of Babylon. And I see that kind of times with Sarah Club. I know someone, a few of us on this call know someone, one of the heavy duty fractivists, who thinks of the Sierra Club as nothing but a whore who follows the money. And he totally dropped out and will have absolutely nothing to do with Sierra Club leadership or whatever who comes into our area to help and so on. So let's not further tarnish the reputation of a beautiful, beautiful organization that we're all part of, that could really sustain the environment and all of us who live in it.
And
Thank you.
Suzanne, as you were speaking, Yvonne was posting into the chat the Sierra Club mission statement, part of which is to restore the quality of the natural and human environment. So, obviously it doesn't get much more human than the communities that we're all speaking about and living in. So Zelda, then Bill, and then we can wrap this puppy up. Go ahead, Zelda.
Hi, John. Thank you. That was very eloquent. I want to make a point that was made earlier. I can't remember if Bill made it or Igor made it, but the Sierra Club is a hierarchical organization. Nobody said that, but that's true. And in some ways it has to be, because it's huge and you can't have everybody just going helter-skelter. But what you also need, I think, is a democratic, an organization that's both hierarchical. There has to be a line of command, but where there's some kind of accountability and James principles, transparency, consultation. The national board sets the policy. The national board has already adopted an infill policy that I think is very much consistent with what is being put forth on Saturday. I'm sorry to say that, but that is my reading of it. Someone said, maybe it was Bill, Igor, I don't remember, this is implementation of this policy. This isn't new. I want to echo what some of the other people, I'm sorry, I really don't know any of you except Susan, and I know Bill a little, and Igor, who's from Berkeley, have said. So that's the SoCal people. It's a question of accountability. The Housing Infill Report of 2018, a white paper for Sierra Club California, was never vetted by the membership in the Bay chapter, which is my chapter. And I would be curious to know if it was vetted in any chapter in the Sierra Club in California. My question is how to change that in the club, how to get accountability, how to let the membership at large know what's going on, and to give the membership a real voice in these really important policy decisions. That's all I have to say. Thank you, John, for organizing this.
My pleasure. Thanks, Zelda. Bill, you're the last guy standing with a hand up, so you want to either respond and or leave us with some parting thoughts?
Well, I do want to respond to a few things. First of all, I want to say that I really appreciate everybody speaking their mind and speaking it cogently and emotionally at times, but that's important because it's a big issue. And so this was a piece which I think we needed to get more of in the club, so to hear from it. And in terms of what the reason I reached out to John and others, because I knew the piece that was missing from most of this housing legislation is affordable housing, and it just doesn't trickle down. I'm sorry. So that's how a lot of people are selling it. So I appreciate that's the point that I urge you to harp on, and that carries a lot of weight, or it needs to carry more. We have a lot of people that are focused on just the numbers. They think you build the housing and eventually you'll build enough, it'll go on down. It's like building a Mercedes for everyone to make sure they can get from point A to point B. That's not a very efficient way to do it. All right. So now some points for each of you. Kathy, there are better studies that are needed. We have the state audit on the way we manage our state housing program it's a disaster, is what they declared basically. So we need to get it together and coordinate all those agencies. And AB 71 is a bill which would do that, and that's in the assembly. So if you're not familiar with that, I suggest you get familiar with it, and that will provide a lot of the data and the management over time that we need to improve it and to show, hey, we have all these vacant apartments there. Let's make sure that we put a tax on them like Oakland is doing, getting in, and things like that. Those are things I think all of us can get a handle on, is to use what we have more efficiently. And again, I'm glad Igor was here to bring me up to date on SB 10 that we're opposed. The club is now opposing it. I will say that at the moment it's not promoting SB 9, and I'm not sure that I'll stay, but I think you folks have helped really make the case for why the club should not just not promote it, but oppose it. So I'm glad that some of you are showing up at the Saturday meeting. If you need to register for that meeting, and I think it has to be before the end of the week. I don't know what the deadline is, but send me an email. It's wjasmith@aol.com. And if you want to register, I'll make sure you get the link. And then very important, as Yvonne really went, is show up at our Sierra Club meetings, and Yvonne's committee in particular, for those of you down there in LA. You're lucky. We have a really good functioning EJ committee at chapter level down there. That's the only place that we do in the state. And I'm trying to change it. Igor and I are working to get one founded up here in Northern California in the SF Bay Chapter 2. Then the green space. I think it was Suzanne or Susie said that we need to build up and not out, or Suzanne, one of the two. And open field development really gives you that chance to build up and have the green space spread out and designed around too on that. Then I will commit to sending info to the United Neighbors and the Homeowners Association. Just a second. Apologize for that. I waited until I talked to come on. All right. So we'll keep you informed about that. And I want to make sure that you all understand in no uncertain terms that that housing is a human right. That's what the Sierra Club has decided. It's the principle. You are not going to get anywhere in the club if you try to argue against that. So I would encourage you to drop that it will not be helpful. So the thing that we do need to, the club has a reputation of being anti-housing, and California is under a huge pressure from the national board to come out and support housing bills. So, and I've given them AB 71 as one which I think they can do, which would be constructive. And we need to work together with you to come up with housing bills that will work. And we can do things like that. And we have some ideas on that. We can link jobs to housing. Oh, I was so glad when I heard, who was it that said that? Raise your hand quickly or whatever. But that's what we need, a lot more of that. I've got it in my notes somewhere. So I'll get back to you. Steve said that too. So that is the way we have to do it. But no city wants to do that because they all want to outcompete. So those are the systematic changes we need. And then another thing we can think about is, okay, you want to upzone the neighborhoods? Well, Bill, John and I talked about a little bit, make it 100% affordable housing, like Cambridge has said. They've actually passed an ordinance that if you can upzone single family neighborhoods, but it has to be single family. It doesn't take care of all the physical problems, but it will certainly slow down the rate at which it's built.
And Bill, on that point, you know, I hear you as far as figuring out ways for us to collaborate and push for, you know, things that everybody can get behind. I really do think that there's a chance here to form an even bigger coalition that would very intentionally push for affordable housing and mixed income housing. A lot of people don't get that, and the need to not just have everybody, you know, the low income folks. I think Yvonne or somebody talked about that earlier, where you get economic segregation. We need to mix incomes together. But the bottom line is, if you're going to have some housing built or created, let's focus on delivering a product that everybody needs and that more people can get behind. And we don't have to have these ongoing wars about SB 9 and, you know, stuff that just doesn't make sense to anybody. So, you know, maybe we can have some more, you know, we've talked about putting together like a housing conference where we would invite legislators and key stakeholders to come and just talk through some of this stuff. And maybe, you know, including you guys in some capacity might put a little more fuel behind that fire. Just a couple of thoughts.
Well, there's lots of things. The toxics issues are certainly things that Yvonne and I have been talking about, and I've been talking with making them a focus of getting an environmental justice group started up here in Northern California, because it provides a good solid base for that to reach out to underserved communities. So that's the last thing. That's John. That's exactly what I wanted to end on, was a note. Let's get together and let's be constructive as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think there are clearly some things that we can and should collaborate on, because again, we can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. Steve, I see you've got your hand up, and I think Suzanne and Patricia want to say a couple of quick things. Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, I'd just like to clarify one thing about how the legislative committee works. Various staff members tend to take on bills that are they divide up the policy issues that are being addressed by various bills. And we have 3 lobbyists on our staff at the moment: Brandon Dawson, Lauren Cullum, and Daniel Barrett. And the one that handles housing is Brandon Dawson. And the members of the legislative committee also divvy up the various policy issues that are going to be worked on. And the legislative committee members that advise Brandon Dawson on housing issues are Kevin Bundy, Marlene Esquivel, Andy Katz, Eric Parfrey, and Matt Williams. So if you have concerns about our position on SB 9, I suggest that you give one of the members of the policy committee or of the legislative committee a call. Let them know what your concerns are, and they can discuss it with Brandon and see whether we really ought to take a position on 9. My understanding of 9 is that it's a reintroduction of a bill that was defeated last year, and that the club has been working with the author about the bill, and whether there are some things in the works that will improve the situation, I don't know, because I'm not one of the people that works on that particular issue. But that's how the committee works, and I hope that people will take advantage of those connections.
Hey, Steve and Bill, real fast, 2 quick things. One, would one of you guys be so kind as to send me the email or the contacts for the committee that Steve just mentioned, so we can communicate with those folks? And then I wanted to ask you guys, have you seen this analysis of SB 9 that Dan Carrick put together? Because it's pretty comprehensive. I'll email that to you. It's worth checking out. I'll email this to everybody that was on this call that I have email. even if you think I have your email, maybe everybody should stick their email in the chat, and that way we can follow up with everybody. Fair enough? Suzanne and then Patricia, and that's it, folks. I got to go eat dinner. Suzanne, go ahead and unmute yourself.
I just want to say thank you to you, Steve, and to Bill, and to John, and to everybody here, because I could feel each of us comes from a pure heart, seeking the greater good. And I know from my many years of, thinking, only through a miracle will the good happen. When good people come together, it will. And so we have to really commit to keep collaborating in a way that is respectful of everybody, and try to understand the other's point of view, staying firm in our own and calling out truth, lest power tries to overcome us. That's kind of shading the truth to the point where it prostitutes the Sierra Club's principles, the HEMES principles, where we should be from the ground up working for humanity and the environment, neither of which, we can't live without either. So again, thank you and have a good evening, everyone. And thank you for doing all this organizing. Thank you, John, Bill, and Steve.
Thanks, Suzanne. Appreciate that. Patricia?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. And also, I think everyone on this call, at least certainly the people I know and have come to know, work their fingers to the bone on doing this and are extremely spread thin on all the work. So as much outreach as one can share with another to bring them into a meeting, remind them that if something is coming up that you might want to be a part of, I certainly would appreciate. But also, Steve, you said Saturday. What meeting on Saturday? I mean, aside from what John was talking about and getting us the information, which I thanks for asking, because I would like to see that too. I do know, and have worked with Brandon in the past, but what's Saturday?
Saturday is a meeting of this California Conservation Committee, and you can register for it. If you receive the activists, if you're on the activist network, that has been circulated there.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm the conservation chair for the Airport Marina Group. I'm not aware of what you're talking about.
Okay. The California Conservation Committee, I think if you just go online and ask for or look up the California Conservation Committee, you'll see there the process for registering to be at the meeting.
And this meeting
will be a Zoom meeting starting at 9 o'clock on Saturday, the 22nd.
Do you have a general, as far as their agenda on that? Are we talking all conservation issues or what?
Yes, they published an agenda, and this the issue we're talking about, the resolution that's being proposed, is sometime in the afternoon. I'm going to be at the whole meeting, so I haven't looked carefully at just when it's coming up.
Won't come up before 1:30. Probably won't come up till after 2. So
you don't have a link you can share on that easily, do you?
Sorry, we don't.
Of?
There's no link. Well, I'll see if I can pick up something.
Yeah.
Looking on the email.
If you guys find it, you can always email it to me, and I can make sure that Patricia and anybody else interested gets it.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Hey, thanks everybody. Appreciate this was almost 2 hours, but I think it was
John. I want to interrupt just a minute. Suzanne mentioned a number of people in the Sierra Club, but I don't think she mentioned Yvonne Martinez, because Yvonne was really essential to this conversation today too.
I invited her to this conversation and to make sure that she'd be here if she wanted to be.
Thank you.
Yvonne.
And Charming I knew was sick, so I didn't go that way.
Yeah, special shout out to Yvonne for dealing with us and having to recover from that second vaccination too. Thanks again, Yvonne.
John, thank you very much for putting this together, and nice meeting everybody. Let's keep working together and make this happen.
Absolutely. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you, everyone.
Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
John,
thank you all.
All right. I'll be circulating the chat and that bill analysis that I mentioned.